You're listening to the Australian Army Training and Doctrine Podcast.
This is Exercise Hamel 2016, and I've come out to the headquarters of Battle Group Jacka to catch up with two members of the battle group who are both Army reservists. So would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Candice Hickey. I'm a radio operator at 108 SIG Squadron from down in Melbourne, and in my civilian life I'm studying to be a maths and physics teacher.
G'day, my name's Chris Hart. I'm a private from 87 RVR, Charlie Company out of Mildura. I'm an infantryman here. My civvy life, I'm a police officer.
What comes through straight away, of course, then, is that you have other lives, other jobs, and yet you've come out here for this exercise. How challenging is it to do that, to be able to get that balance between your Army career and your civilian career?
I'm very fortunate my civilian employer is actually very positive towards the Army, so she's happy to let me go and come on exercises like this, and it slides in pretty well with university as well.
How does it work for you then, Chris?
It works well. My employer sees the benefits of things that the Army can give me. I'm fortunate enough to get time off as well. It's a lot of fun for me to come out here and basically have a second job.
There's lots of people in the police who are in the Army Reserve, aren't there?
Yes, there are, yeah. The similarities in terms of the command structure, and the police is somewhat a paramilitary organisation, so the same sort of people are drawn to it. For me, this is enjoyable. I mean, this is somewhat recreation as opposed to just a job. So I enjoy taking this opportunity to get away from my day-to-day job. It gives me something different to do. And, I mean, there are similarities, but it is very different as well. So.
And what specifically would you say the Army has taught you as a reservist?
Well, the Army puts a lot more emphasis on you as an individual in terms of individual skills and professionalism. Time management skills and things like that are very important in the Army, and leadership skills probably the biggest. There's a lot of trust that's put on you as an individual, whereas in other employments I've found that you tend to be told what to do all the time in terms of individual tasks, whereas here, once you gain certain knowledge, there's an expectation you can carry that out. So it certainly builds your own confidence and leadership skills, and I think that there's really nowhere else that you can do that. And
have you found there's skills here that you've been able to take back to your civilian work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, things like confidence in your ability to talk to people and command. Obviously, as a police officer, we have to deal with members of the public. Having that confidence and that ability behind you certainly helps with that job. And
for you, Candice, training to be a maths and science teacher, how has this job helped you with that?
Well, being a radio operator, a lot of the science behind that is part of the science that I learned to be a physics teacher, so that ties in really well. Coming back to that leadership thing, so I've just come back from a course for some leadership in the Army, and being a teacher, you have to teach in front of the classroom. You've got that public speaking. In the Army, you also learn how to teach your skills to others as well, so how to stand in front of the classroom and develop instruction and teach it as well, so it ties in well with that.
And as a signaller, what kind of training have you had to undertake? Because I imagine in some ways it's technically quite complex.
Yes, as a reservist, there's at least 4 2-week blocks of training that I had to conduct to finish my basic level of training, and then new training comes out as new equipment comes out. You have to be qualified on that as well. So I still have far more courses to do just to be fully qualified on all that sort of stuff.
What about for you, Chris? What kind of training have you been through to get to the stage where you are now?
I was infantryman. Obviously, you go through Kapuku 28 days recruit training course, and then there are 2 2-week blocks of your basically advanced infantry tactics and weapons handling. Once you complete that, you're qualified, but really that's when you start your learning. You pick up all your skills out here in the bush and from your peers and section commanders. That's where the real knowledge comes.
So Candice, what do you think Exercise Hamel is going to offer you in terms of your professional development?
Coming on Exercise Hamel as a radio operator, you actually get to see a lot more equipment that you wouldn't see in a reserve unit back in Melbourne. Some of the vehicles we're using here, and definitely a lot of the new equipment, I haven't seen before until I came here, and it's great to have that opportunity to pick that up and learn those new skills so that when that equipment comes over to us, we've already full bottle on it.
As a reserve element, especially from country Victoria, we don't often get to come out and see what goes on in big army, and so an exercise like this is invaluable in our aspect. I mean, we get to work with multiple elements and multiple assets, and combined arms training is really, I think, at the crux of what we need to be focused on. We can focus on our individual skills at our home units, but until we come out in a place like this with the numbers that we have here and the multinational forces we have here, there's really no other way to simulate conflicts or issues that we'd be dealing with overseas of today.
Candice and Chris, thank you very much. Now, as we're standing here, Battle Group Jacka are preparing to rehearse a counterattack scenario just behind us here. And one of the people involved in that is Lieutenant Lachlan Poppins, and he's with me now. So tell us, Lieutenant Poppins, what's your role here on Exercise Hamel?
My role is a platoon commander. I am with the Battle Group headquarters. I have two tasks. One is the quick reaction force, as well as I provide integral security to the Battle Group headquarters.
And which unit are you from when you're not part of Battle Group Jacka?
I'm from 4th 19th Prince of Wales Light Horse, which is in Melbourne, in Simpson Barracks, and I've been posted there for about the past 4 years.
And what kind of training have you received since you joined the Army?
Well, I joined the Army 11 years ago. I started as a soldier. I drove APCs and ASLAVs. I was fortunate enough to deploy as well to the Middle East a few years ago as a soldier. After I came back, I decided to become an officer, and I was lucky enough to go back to the cavalry as well, and have been loving it ever since.
What was that like then, making that transition from being a soldier to becoming an officer?
It was great. I thoroughly enjoyed my time as a soldier, and I think I learnt a lot, but I wanted something more from Army, and so I decided to become an officer. And I always, every day I try and keep in the back of my mind, every decision that I make has a much broader impact upon the soldiers on the ground.
And in terms of your role here as part of Battle Group Jacka, what specifically are you hoping to achieve in terms of your own training?
Well, we've been training for at least 12 to 18 months to get to this point. I really want to hone some of the finer points that we've been training on. So specifically, combined arms teams, I think, so important, and it's really great. Just this morning I've been working with people from the artillery as well as the engineers, and it's so rare that you get that opportunity to do that sort of training back in our own home depots. That's my main focus, is combined arms training across the battle group.
And how does it work then with Battle Group Jacka being a reinforcing battle group that's a reserve formation? How are you plugging into 1st Brigade?
So 1st Brigade are essentially the leading force element. So they have a lot of the hard-hitting power, 2 mechanised battle groups. We are a smaller, somewhat lighter battle group, further to the rear, and we ensure that their lines of communication and supply are kept open, are kept running, so that they can continue the push forward south.
So you're in the Army Reserve. Have you always been a reservist?
Yes, I've always been a reservist. I did 2 years continuous full-time service where I went overseas, but always a reservist, yes.
And what does that mean to you? How would you describe being a reservist to a member of the public that's not familiar with Army? I
guess a reservist, first of all, there's commitment, and I think the commitment is probably more so than people imagine. As the ads used to say, you know, one night a week, one weekend a month, and a few weeks a year. I found it certainly more than that for me. I'm up to 5 weeks continuous training this year, and I think being a reservist, you need to ensure that you are committed to doing a lot of training. What do you do then in your civilian life? I'm a mechanical engineer. I work for a company called Rheinmetall MAN Military Vehicles, and we are currently supplying the Australian Army with 2,500 new trucks that will replace the Unimog Mack S-Liner fleet. And I'm lucky enough to work on the heavy tractor variant, and also I do a lot of the protection, ensuring that the soldiers inside the armoured cabin that we offer are very well protected from bombs and direct fire. There's very much then a crossover, it sounds, between your civilian life and your military life. Yes, indeed, yeah. Certainly they both feed one another, let's say, and coming here on exercise, it makes you realise just how important those kind of assets, those logistical assets are, and it really makes me turn up to work and want the absolute best design for our soldiers, because I've seen some things which can be improved, and I thoroughly will seek those designs in my trucks. How does your employer deal with the fact that you're away on exercise like this, though, for weeks on end at times? There's no doubt that my employer does miss me while I am away. There's certainly a burden of work, but through constant communication and early warning, at least 3, 4, 5 months out, I'm able to advise my employer. I'll be away for this period. I'll be away for that period. Ultimately, it's a negotiation between the two of us to ensure that we're both happy. In terms then of the training that you receive within the Army, how does that translate back to your civilian job? The training I receive in Army, I guess specifically, the best one that I learn, that I'm lucky enough to learn, is the leadership, command and management. That has brought me so far forward in my civilian career that I can sit there amongst a group of other engineers and project managers in my office and speak with clarity, concisely, and dictate what I see as, for example, a problem, and then communicate a solution to that problem as well.
And what about the other way round? How does your civilian training come to help you in this environment on exercise?
My civilian training is probably less so transferable, but certainly the training that I received from my employer with respect to protection of soldiers, specifically within vehicles, makes me very cognizant of how best we can protect our soldiers. For example, just being within a protected mobility vehicle, ensuring absolutely every piece of equipment is tied down, the soldiers are strapped in, to ensure that everything is secure within the vehicle to the greatest extent. Even the smallest item can become a lethal object in an IED event.
Given now that you're here on Exercise Hamel, what do you intend to achieve by the end of the exercise?
By the end of the exercise, I'd like to have a very good command control strategy with my section commanders so that we intimately know each other's thoughts and movements. And I also want to understand to the greatest extent possible, firstly, combined arms teams, and further explore how they work and how we can work with one another. And secondly, just how the Battle Group headquarters works as a command and control element.
Lieutenant Lachlan Poppins, thank you very much. This is Captain Sharon Mascall-Dare reporting from Exercise Hamel 2016.
This podcast is produced by the Australian Army and is copyright the Commonwealth of Australia.